Finally, we can get to the Paleolithic diet. Is it really as good as they say? Hello, I'm Dr. Sam, this is Dr. Sam's Health, and today I'm going to talk about the Paleolithic diet. As promised, I will dissect a meta-analysis that compared Paleolithic diet to some other diets. It is a study that combined multiple randomized controlled trials, or just controlled trials, and I've made a couple of videos on that subject. I spoke about paleo to begin with. I spoke about one specific article that is already included into this meta-analysis. I started talking about this meta-analysis and I said that we have to prepare better to talk about this kind of studies. I made a video about meta-analysis as a research technique, by the way, check it out. And finally, I think we're at the point when we can actually dive into this meta-analysis. And that's what we're gonna do today. Prior to getting to the meat of the day, I would like to make my regular disclaimers. First of all, I'm a medical doctor, I'm a practicing physician, but it doesn't mean that anything I talk about on my YouTube channel, on my website, drsamshealth.com, should be taken as a medical advice. I'm not giving any kind of medical advice over internet, and I merely express my opinions, which I hopefully are well-intended, well-researched, but they do not necessarily represent the opinions of my regulatory bodies, my colleges, my universities, and so on. So please take them as such, as just well-intended opinions. And having said that, I think we're ready to talk about the most important subject, meta-analysis on Paleolithic diet. So I've got this article in front of me, or in front of you, and I'm gonna dissect it. I'm gonna get into the details. By the way, as I said earlier, I would like to start making videos at a more regular rate, but it means that I do not have an opportunity to prepare really well for them. So today will be one of these videos when I just have read the meta-analysis and I'm almost improvising. I'm talking about all this stuff and there might be some ambient noises. One of them is my cat playing in the background. She's so lovely. So, I've got this article. It was published in 2018 in Nutrition Journal. The title is Influence of Paleolithic Diet on Anthropometric Markers in Chronic Diseases, which I think is important because when we are talking about paleo diet, we don't usually want to talk about people who have some chronic diseases. And it is a systematic review and meta-analysis. Based on the abstract, we know that they have included only randomized studies with humans, which is obviously important, that use the Paleolithic diet in the prevention and control of chronic non-communicable diseases, something like actual obesity, heart disease, and so on. They have done their research, they have done a systematic review, obviously as the title implies and as the whole idea of meta-analysis implies. They said that they have found 1,224 articles, of which 24 were selected and 11 were included in the meta-analysis. So I'm not sure what they meant by 24 were selected, but I assume usually there is a kind of selection tree when they say, we used certain keywords, we found so many articles, then we went through the titles and abstracts and have selected a smaller number of articles, like 24. And then out of those, we were able to get the data for meta-analysis, and they are saying that they were able to get the data from 11 articles. A little bit more on that in a second, but I think so far it's actually pretty good. I'm actually surprised that they were able to find so many randomized trials, 11. For example, when I was doing some research on alcohol and epilepsy, we were able to find only like 5 or 6 articles. Sometimes on subjects like that, it's very hard to find any kind of good research, but they looks like they have done a very good job. They have located quite a few articles, and they obviously talk about their final outcome in the results section of the abstract, and I will not keep the suspense going. The summary of the effect showed a loss of minus 3.52 kilos in the mean weight, or around 7 pounds. So on average, people who were on the paleo diet, they have lost around 3.5 kilos or 7 pounds more than people who were adhering to some other diets. and they also show that there is a statistically significant difference in waist circumference and BMI. So far so good, sounds very promising. The only thing I would like to say is that 3.5 kilos is not a huge amount of weight loss, but they're talking about the difference. And I assume that many of the studies, they have shown that other diets did not contribute to significant weight loss, and the paleo was significantly better with the difference of extra 3.5 kilos or 7 pounds lost. I will say that the most important piece here would be the timeline, obviously, and as you know, we can easily lose 3.5 kilos over the course of a very short period of time. So it might be statistically significant, but at the same time it might not be particularly clinically relevant or relevant to our lifestyle. Is it really worth changing your lifestyle if you're gonna go for a very excruciating diet just for the sake of argument for a year, whereas you can just adhere to something much more sustainable and easier to follow and lose similar amount of weight, but just like 7 pounds less over the course of, say, a year or two. So they have actually several pages of articles included into their meta-analysis, 4 pages, and I don't know, it printed in quite a terrible way, or maybe I'm just getting old and I cannot read it. But they're talking about, first of all, the population of the studies. It's actually very interesting because they have people who are overweight, obese, we can call obesity a chronic disease, people with hypercholesterolemia, which mean that people have high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, and right away I see the article number 5 in the list is healthy population. So I'm already not very sure how they have selected this studies, because in the title they were talking about chronic disease. I think the healthy population is healthy and is free of chronic disease, but I think, you know, you can kind of rule it in, because if you are talking about something like prevention of chronic disease. But okay, they mostly have type 2 diabetes, obesity, several trials with healthy population, which is nice. The evaluated outcomes are very different, and that's kind of an issue that stems from meta-analysis to begin with, because, you know, we've got quite a few studies that might study one thing, but at the same time they report multiple outcomes, and you can use them for your meta-analysis, which is fine. The next thing is the time frame of the studies, and they, even on one page, and I know for sure that they vary from 2 weeks to 24 months, or 2 years, or 104 weeks. So I think that's quite significant, because the authors themselves, later on in the article, they say that the effects were more pronounced in the short run, so shorter duration of clinical trials would give us better results effectively. And as the patient subjects were continuing with their diet, the effects of the diet on their weight or their waist circumference or their BMI would be greatly reduced. And actually, I will roll back a little bit. I made this video about this influential study that is already included into this meta-analysis, and I said that, you know, it is very interesting there that they have data for 24 months, but they noted that within the first 6 months there was a significant difference of weight loss. I think that people who are just following Nordic dietary recommendations, they have lost around 2.5 kilos, so like 5 pounds, and people who were on paleo diet within 6-month period lost around 6 kilos, so like 12-13 pounds, and the difference was around 4 kilos or 3.5 kilos, and that is very important. But after that, they noted that people did not follow the protein intake recommendations in the paleo cohort, and they even regained a little bit of weight. And I think that was very important in that video and in that article, and since this article is particularly influential in this meta-analysis, I think it's very important to kind of remind you about that. And by the way, check out that video, I think it was actually pretty good. So the very first thing that we have is the forest plot. I will show it here, likely you won't hear it from camera, and quite frankly I don't want to get a copyright strike for posting some information. I will put the links to the PubMed references or web pages that contain the abstracts of the articles I'm referring to, and you can check it out. I think actually that this article is in public access, but nevertheless, it's better not to get into this. I will tell you what I see here. So the forest plot is the way of reporting the results of the studies. They have like here the names of the studies, their outcomes, and a chart that shows what was the effect of in each and every study and what was the pooled result, the average one. And what we have here is the very first thing that strikes me is some mathematical oddity. They are talking about 11 studies and I could only count 10. So I actually did count them several times because, you know, it's kind of odd that, you know, I couldn't believe my eyes. Anyhow, what we have here is 10 studies effectively, and the mean difference is around 3.5 kilos in terms of weight loss. But let me take a look at the individual studies. So, as I said, they report the outcomes of the studies on the forest plot. The very first study is the study that I've been talking about in my previous videos, Bloomquist et al. 2018. They report the mean difference of almost 4 kilos, 3.9, so I was right. And it is the most influential study. And by that I mean that 50%, 51% of the data for the whole meta-analysis are coming from this one study. So quite frankly, as somebody who reads meta-analysis and knows how to do them, I would say that you really don't need meta-analysis if you have 10 studies and one of them has 51% of the impact. So that's the first criticism, and actually I think it's quite significant. The next thing, if I look at the studies, is that this one is effectively the only one that had solid statistical significance. After that, we've got one study with negative result, meaning that people on paleo, they actually gained more weight, and it's statistically significant, the study of Boyers et al. 2014. Then we get 7 studies that have some good results, but they are not statistically significant. And finally, only one study by Pastor et al. 2015 that is talking about significant weight loss. Actually, the difference is almost 10 kilos, 9.3, and it's statistically significant. But this study has the weight of 4.2%. And one thing that I kind of forgot to mention, I mentioned that this study by Bloomquist, they had data for 24 months, and for some reason they chose the data for just 6 months, and they have included this data into this meta-analysis. I don't think it's fair. First of all, they do not talk about the way they combine the data from very different timelines. So when I was talking about meta-analysis, also check out that video, I said that studies must be compatible. They must be of similar design. And when you're comparing weight loss on 2 weeks, the weight loss attempt or weight loss approach that lasts 2 weeks to a weight loss approach that lasts 2 years, it's just unbelievable. It's like very different situations. And I don't think that we are comparing legit data. So there must be, normally there are ways of adjusting to that. We're talking about a person years, a person month, rather than just results. And unfortunately, authors do not really talk about that. At least I haven't found it. By the way, if you find some mistakes in what I'm saying, just let me know. But the overall is that they have this meta-analysis that of 10 studies, not 11, that is basically based on one study, and they have cherry-picked the data from 6 months, not 24 months. The reason why I know it is just because the difference reported here is 3.9, which was exactly the difference that was reported for 6 months. And the rest of the studies, they just add a little bit of statistical significance to that, but otherwise they do not contribute much in terms of the data, validity, and so on. So quite frankly, that meta-analysis, the only word that comes to my mind is meaningless. There is no point in doing meta-analysis when you've got this kind of data. But nevertheless, the result is that going on paleo for 6 months is good. I would wonder what would happen if they have the data for 24 months in this meta-analysis. Would it still be statistically significant? What would be the average difference, and so on? The only way of knowing that it would be actually doing it myself, and I don't feel like doing that because it's a lot of work. Also, they have two other branches of meta-analysis here. So another one is the one that is dedicated to BMI, and they show that there is a statistically significant difference in BMI. They have only 6 studies included here, and it looks like actually none of them is statistically significant, and just because of the confidence interval here crossing the middle line, technically they can be statistically significant, but it looks like the aggregation of studies allowed us, or them, to produce a statistically significant result, whereas each and every single individual study was not statistically significant. Maybe one of them was, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that that's another research trick that researchers can use, or sometimes it happens in such a way that you grab a bunch of articles and get the data from them. None of them is statistically significant, but when you combine them into a meta-analysis, you get something that is statistically significant. And the last one is waist circumference. The mean difference is 2.46. I wonder what is the unit, whether it's inches or centimeters. They are European, so it might be centimeters. I will check and I'll put it as a line underneath, like here somewhere. What we have here is 8 studies were included. Again, Bloomquist et al. Is the most influential one with 39% of the weight, and it looks like it is effectively the only or one of 2 articles that have some statistical significance. The rest are not significant, and the end result is quite mediocre. So again, I'm not very impressed by that, but you know, overall I think that's everything that I had to talk about in this meta-analysis. Let's summarize. Meta-analysis is a great technique. I'm very happy that they have done their job and they have done the systematic review, found all these articles, combined them mathematically, but there are quite a few shortcomings, and as I said in my video about meta-analysis in general, pretty much all of them are here. I'm actually very happy that I've made that video the other week. We've got multiple studies that are very small, and in general studies are not really compatible to each other just because of some differences in populations, but mostly because of the timeline that ranges from 2 weeks to 24 months. My major criticism is the inclusion of the study of Bloomquist 2018 as the main contributor to body weight data, and cherry picking, or like picking the data point that comes from 6 months into the study, which is the best point. And this study contributes so much to the meta-analysis in general that there is not much point in conducting the rest of the stuff. So, nevertheless, my conclusions are: meta-analysis, this particular one is not particularly a great one, but I'm happy that it exists. It shows that there are some studies that they show some results. In many cases, by the way, they are inconclusive, but Paleo, in my opinion, is a great approach. It has multiple benefits other than just weight loss, and the overall data, when combined, show that over the course of like 6 months or so, people can actually lose significantly more weight on Paleo than on some other diets. That would be likely everything I have to say. I will add likely that in a while I'll make a video about other effects of Paleo diet, because people who are following Paleo diet are usually talking about how it affects like their risk of cardiovascular disease, their risk of stroke, all kinds of negative health consequences, and I agree on some common sense or logical level that following Paleo diet, the diet that our ancestors followed or used, makes total sense, because it's a natural way of eating, natural way of sustaining yourself, and it's definitely worth exploring. And likely it will be my last video on paleo, and I will move on to some other diets. For now, I can say that paleo does lead to slightly better weight loss results, though these results are statistically significant, but I don't think that it's that meaningful. So I think that this diet is worth following just out of common sense kind of standpoint, which I actually share. And as I said in multiple videos, I'm actually a big fan of this idea of following paleo diet, just because, you know, it naturally excludes multiple harmful foods, in my opinion, like refined sugars, like things that are like processed foods, things that are generated, like engineered foods, and so on. So I think I'm done for today. Again, sorry if there are any kind of, you know, technical issues, sound issues, light issues, the way I talk. I'm trying just to make it in one cut, and that's it. I hope you like this kind of videos. Please let me know what you think about it, and I'm glad that I was able to present this meta-analysis. The next couple of videos that I plan will be on other effects of paleo. I think I'll make a video about Omicron variant of COVID-19, just because it's very important these days, and then I plan to switch to a couple of other diets. Specifically, it will be either low carb or keto or Atkins, and you know, there's a whole conglomerate of low carbohydrate diets that I believe are cool to at least talk about and to entertain. So having said that, I'm wrapping up this video. Thank you for watching. I hope that you like this video. If you liked, hit the like button, subscribe, become my subscriber, check out my website drsamshealth.com. I've got my blogs there. I'm a little bit behind, but I will make one on that for sure. The other thing is always ask questions, leave comments. It keeps my videos kind of afloat and topical, and I would like to use YouTube algorithm to bring as many people to my channel, and I hope that what I'm sharing on my channel would be useful and interesting for most of you who are trying to get to the root of, you know, science of weight loss, fitness, and so on. Once again, thank you for watching. Have an amazing time. All the very best. See you in my next video.